another episode of New Level Relationships. I am your host, Martinique Brown, and I'm so happy that you guys have decided to tune in today. I'm so excited about this show. You know why? Because we have two ladies that are relationship coaches. And you know what? This is going to be such a great show. Before we get started, make sure you guys go ahead and share this video now. Make sure that you also like our Facebook pages that's listed, as well as visit these ladies' websites as well. Also, like I said, share this video right now. I'm just so excited about this topic. This topic is so good because everybody think they can communicate well, but then you talk to somebody and they're like, I have no idea what you're trying to say to me. But you know what? We got you covered, especially because it is the end of January and we want to continue to keep this new year resolution of communicating effectively. So today's topic is how to build strong communication skills in a relationship. So now you might be watching this with your boo and you're like, oh, we got to watch this. We're going to watch this. And that's good. I'm glad that you guys have said that. But even if you're single, you can begin learning how to have effective communication with your potential boo, your potential spouse, because we just want to get you prepared. So welcome Coach Kai and Destiny Thomas to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you ladies are here on the show today. So what I would like you guys to do is just introduce yourselves to our viewers and just let them know a little bit more about your area of specialty as a relationship coach.
So yes, I am Coach Kai. I am a personal growth strategist. And what that typically means for a lot of people is that I help you create a map to get to living your best life authentically, living you, especially within relationships, right? I think people get it a little twisted when they recognize that they hear things like, so we're coming together as one, as a couple, right? But you're still an individual and you still need to recognize that. So that is my specialty. You can visit me anytime on my Facebook page at Chilling with Coach Kai.
Excellent, excellent. Destiny?
Hello, everyone, and thank you once again, Martinique, for having me up here. My name is Destiny Thomas of Realizing Destiny, LLC. I am a full-time prayer and discernment coach. So I actually work with people on how to find their God-given purpose. And with that, of course, we that connects with relationships, with your career, with your life in general, just living the purpose that God has for you. And you can always find me at Destiny, Realizing Destiny Thomas on Facebook.
That's good. And you know what? If this is your first time tuning in, one of the ways that we really make this show interactive and fun is by you posting comments and asking questions. Now, these ladies are, taking time out of their schedule, and this is free information, but they do offer maybe a discovery session for maybe 15 minutes to see if this is the right coach for you and your significant other. Also, remember, all of their contact information is in the description box. If you're just tuning in, make sure you go ahead and share this video now with other individuals as well as other groups that you're a part of. So we're just going to get right into it. So how do you not let the day go by without unresolved issues that's still on the table if you're trying to have effective communication?
Destiny, I don't know if you want to jump in. I know that for me, as I coach couples through their issues, one of the things that we typically talk about is to ensure that you never close a night out without discussing the events of the day. As a couple, you do want to make sure before you close your eyes, before your head hits that pillow, that you are discussing the events of the day, your feelings, what you expect for the tomorrows, so that, you can close out any issues. Typically some people will sleep on some things before they say things. My advice would be to definitely put those things on the table before you rest at night. Of course, health reasons, it's not good to go to sleep and have stress in your sleep. And as couples, you do find that you will have those issues the following day, and you don't want to kind of live in that. I'm going to drop off because I think Destiny probably could add some more to it.
I completely agree that you want to air those things out before you go to bed. Because like you said, you definitely don't want to go to bed with those things on your heart. You don't want to go to bed with, with just that type of miscommunication. But to be perfectly honest, just knowing reality, sometimes that means that you have to release it without the other person being in agreement with it. So, even if it's going to your journal and writing it down there, or just going into your prayer closet and praying about it, just because we're saying don't go to sleep with it doesn't mean there's going to be a resolve or actual agreement between the two parties, because there are some people who shut down. There are some people who just leave altogether. But it's really healthy for you yourself to not go to sleep with it.
But I feel like that's just so much easier, because if it's still boiling within inside of me and I'm still upset, I journal, I'm still upset. I want to talk about this still. What do you recommend for me?
So every couple is different, right? And so and like I said from the beginning, you're an individual. And so I think from the beginning, there is a failure for a lot of people to let one another know where you stand from the very beginning of your relationship, right? And as you grow in that relationship, you begin to learn that your partner is a person who can hold on to things, right? Yeah. And writing things out might not be best for them. And so there is some give and take within the relationship, right? And, for those folks who are married, that's an even deeper issue, right? Because there's some give and take in roles that we take as husbands and wives, right? There's a level of respect that we must give our male counterparts, right? And there's a level of love that has to be given to the woman in the relationship, right? And so we need to learn to speak in those languages to our partners, and also allow them the space to be themselves individually.
That's good.
I would have to agree. It's going to be different based on your relationship, but more importantly, you're supposed to know each other and know how they handle things. I personally would say to that person that even in a relationship and in a marriage, you're actually there. And I feel this is forgotten a lot of times. You're actually there to serve the other person. And it can get difficult at times, but you're really there to wake up every day and say, what can I do to serve them? What can I do to make their life better? And then prayerfully, that's what they're there to do for you. So you're both being satisfied. So even if that's what you want to do, sometimes we have to humble ourselves to make sure the situation doesn't escalate. Because you may feel that way because you're still being led by your emotions. But after you take a minute, after you journal, you may not be over it, but after you journal and actually write it down, you'll see that, well, maybe I could have pulled back a little bit. Maybe I didn't have to, just keep going. So I would just have to say, just remembering that you're there to serve the other party, especially if you're in a marriage, because you're planning on being there forever. So you don't want to allow a temporary situation to destroy something that's meant to last forever.
And I know, Coach, go ahead.
About the fact that, you need to be authentic with your responses, right? You never want to live a lie.
Definitely. And I think that really just leads great into this next question, because I know, Coach Kai, you were talking about still be staying true to yourself. So how do you get your point across without demasculating your significant other, but you still staying true to yourself? And this was actually a question that somebody else posted.
It's always a part of speech. Some of the things that I post about is speak life within your partner, right? Speaking that wisdom within your partner, and especially nowadays where women have, got this idea that You need to take on such a very strong male persona, right? And it doesn't hurt to step back and stand in your presence as a woman, right? You can be a boss, but still be very feminine. And so the language that we use with our mates is very, very significant. It's not, hey, look, don't do that anymore, right? We have to come with a spirit of love. And in that spirit of love, it's, hey, honey, I want to talk to you for a minute. And it really means that you need to step back and really think about what you want to say. Oftentimes, when there's an issue, we go right at the conversation without really thinking through what needs to be said and how we can say it in love.
Definitely. So, what are some things that you feel that males should recognize and remember when communicating with their girlfriend or wife, and vice versa? Sound like you got a laundry list. Oh,
girl. What I would suggest is, fellas, if you get the opportunity, please don't start out with, you need to calm down.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That would make her not calm.
Right.
That's the first place. Secondly, we speak different languages, right? And then there's this whole thing about the love languages, right? Are you a servant? Are you a person that needs rewards? I mean, you have to really think about the person that you're dealing with at that particular time. But I will say there are some things that intrinsically are feminine, and women don't want to be told, you need to slow down. You need to relax. They don't want to hear that, right? Because for them, their emotions speak where a man's logic will speak, right? And so, there's a balance, right? So I would say to guys, kind of think about how you say it. I'm not saying step out of your masculine role. I'm not saying step out of your logic mode. But what I am saying is really think carefully about what type of mate you have.
I would have to agree. Just think before you speak. I think men, because they are more masculine and macho, they just feel like as long as I'm releasing the message, that it will be received. But delivery is very important. And it's the way you deliver it, the tone you use, the word choices you use, it can just turn the entire conversation around. I say this to my husband all the time, like, you really have some valid points that you're saying. However, you shut me down when you said it this way. And I think that's very important. The delivery, like you said, women and men are very different. We need it with a little bit of a softer approach, a softer approach. I think a lot of times, just men and women, we have deep-rooted things that we're dealing with just in general from our childhood, and things like that. And anytime you rub that seed the wrong way that should have been removed by God, it'll make the conversation go wrong. And because that is your partner, they know your most vulnerable buttons, and they usually tend to touch those. So I would just say, think before you speak, and just be very mindful of your delivery.
But what do you feel are some red flags that single people should consider before they go to that next level in their relationship in communicating? Because I feel that sometimes we as singles will go into that next phase of a relationship with a person, and we already know I can't handle this, but he's going to change or she's going to change when we get in this relationship.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. We can't go into a situation assuming someone's going to change. We have to believe them for what they show us. Now, once again, if 10 years down from the line or 5 years down the line, they change and you guys reconnect, that's something totally different. But you can't go into a situation assuming that they're going to change. If you don't have clear boundaries of how you want to be communicated, and if they're not able to fulfill those boundaries, if you do have them, then you have to be okay with just moving on. But I think that's a woman thing. Like, we are naturally nurturers. So we naturally have this image in our head that we can create this masterpiece that's deep down within. And it does work for some people. Some people do get in those relationships but I do feel like we take on a lot of baggage and have to sort that laundry when we could have allowed them to do that on their own time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
And let me just add to that, how you go into it is going to be how you go out of it. And quite often, you're right, women think that because he's absolutely what I want, but there are some things I want to change about him. I'm going to go in and I'm going to wait him out. I think that's a big error on a lot of parts. So the other thing I want to push out is that oftentimes when we go into those situations, it's not that person that's going to change. It's going to be you.
That's good.
And because you're going to get frustrated. That person's not going to get frustrated. They don't know what your game plan is, right? Right? You're the one with the game, right? And so if that's the way you go about it, expect to change yourself. That person will not be the person changing. Now, they may change in a way that they walk away from the relationship, and you need to be prepared because you've gamed the situation.
Right.
So this was another question from someone, and they asked, how do you not let the toxicity of the day affect how you speak to your significant other?
I think creating space for that. I actually was listening to someone else's live the other day, and they were talking about this, how the stress from the workday comes in the house. And something that my husband and I realized we had to do is by coming in and saying, okay, how was your day? And giving that, 10, 20, 30 minutes to kind of discuss and decompress from the day. But then, okay, we've talked about it. There's no reason to bring it up any further. So I think you have to make room for that space, because we do realize we're at our jobs sometimes more than we are at home. So we do need to talk about those things and really deal with those things and get a different perspective from someone who's not at work with you or not, outside with you. But after that, okay, we're not going to talk about that anymore.
But I'll go ahead, Coach Ryan.
You also run the risk too that when you often bring those things home, if your relationship at home is not a stable relationship, it will cause you additional stress because this person's going to see you in a very, very different light, right? And so you have to always be cautious about how you do that presentation. If you have a very dysfunctional relationship, and I'm sitting here thinking about how I would coach or couch it with some folks. If you have a very difficult, dysfunctional relationship, this is not the time to bring the stresses of work home with you. This is the time to, prioritize what is very important to you. It may mean that discussing that with some outside entity other than your significant other might be better, right? And so you really have to think that through. Now, oftentimes, just like Destiny said, you do need to come home. That's your significant other. You need to have that place where there's a safe space. And I speak to my clients about it all the time. What you should have in your relationship is a safe space. And that safe space should allow you to have all kinds of conversations, right? But there are some relationships, as we know, they don't have safe spaces. And so you really need to think about that.
And I know I was reading an article where this was a male talking about his wife. And he said he was just open and honest with her and told her, I just need 30 minutes. When I get home, just like 30 minutes, no talking, no, how was your day? He didn't want that. And I like the fact that he was honest with her. And, they never shared her side of it. But, what if her feelings was hurt? And it's kind of like, he didn't ask for 24 hours of no talking. He's just like, can I just get 30 minutes, And so I think that, like you said, we have to learn that person, but we have to also just respect their differences, from us. So I think that that's really good. What do you do when a person shuts down in the middle of a conversation, though? How do you handle that?
Well, for me, I'm a very direct person as he is. And so for me, I would definitely say and my words are, I'm gonna need a minute. I'm going to need a minute, and I do it not just with my significant other. I do it with my children. I do it with my grandchildren. I'm going to need a minute. And they happen to know the signals of I can't take anymore, right? They know my body motion. They see my eyes rising up in my head, and so they know that. But for people who are new in relationships, that's a very different thing, right? Because it could be kind of startling for a person like me to say to a new person in my life, I'm gonna need a minute and walk away. And so again, you're gonna need to adjust depending on how new you are in your relationship, right? Because there are some folks here are probably looking at this video and they're thinking, well, I'm still in the honeymoon phase. And if they do that to me, I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? Their feelings.
Girl, he done did it before. What are you talking about? He did it when y'all was dating. Nothing new.
I agree with Coach Kai. You just have, you have to kind of know your partner, but if you're in a new relationship, I would hope, moving towards marriage or moving towards a committed relationship, you have to, some people deal with their things differently, and some, just shut down. Yes, after the fact, I would go to them and say, it did make me feel shut out. It made me feel like you weren't, willing to work this out or, come to a solution, and then maybe talk about it after that. But I think when you try to do it in the moment, it just makes stuff worse, because it's like, I don't want to talk. And now I'm just going to start saying stuff that I probably can't come back from. So just leave them alone. So that would be my advice, to just come back to it later, table it, as they say, and then come back to it later and let them know how it made you feel. But also we have to just adjust to how people deal with stuff. Because once again, it comes from stuff in the household. If that's what they saw, sometimes that's what they repeat.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
But Coach Kai, I have a question for you, because I know that you said that you are the type of person that tells that individual, or at least your family members and your significant other, know that you'll tell them and you'll be open and honest and let them know, I just need a minute. Let's say that, okay, I'm a guy. All right. So do you want me to come back to you after you've taken time and bring up the conversation again, or should I wait for you to bring up the conversation again?
So knowing me and my personality again, because I'm a little different, I would need them to give me the space to come back and say, I want to talk about it now. Okay. Now, I've had opportunities to say that, and I won't. And it just depends on, where you are in that particular time and space. Every situation is different. I've had a significant other who would at times say, well, I think we need to talk now.
I know that's right. He like, look,
I would just.
But see, I guess that's what would make me angry, because that's where the selfishness comes. Because if I feel like you've had enough time to think about this, I'm gonna bring it back up, because obviously you forgot, and see, I'm just like him. I'm gonna bring it back up, Coach Kyle, like, it's been tabled. Let's talk about it again. But I think that's the difficult side of it, respecting each other's wishes in those areas and not personalizing it, and saying, oh, well, it's just me. Like, no, he does it to everybody. But
I would say this, though, Martinique, that I think that most people can most often tell when a situation is so outstanding and just so important to talk about it right then and there, versus you come in and you're like, I just need a few minutes. I think you can tell just by body language how somebody carries it, you know, the look on their face when you're walking in the door. I mean, there are some physical cues that exist. And I think that if people don't notice those, I think that's problematic.
Right.
Because you can, you know, you can adjust to a situation if, you know, you can read those body cues, right? Before a person even talks, right? And so, yeah, I think that's very important. And so if you are into communicating, part of the communication is the unsaid.
Right.
That's good. And you know what? So go into and explain to our viewers how much of communication is nonverbal.
More than 50%. A lot of it is nonverbal.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Destiny jump in because I want to hear
what she was saying, that more than 50% is nonverbal, you know, and I don't think that we really realize. You could say, oh, LO, just like they do the LOLs. So you're not even smiling and you LOLing all day. No, you're not. You're not laughing out loud, you know. And so help people to understand that is so much more than what you say that can really help. Just help them, coaches, help them.
I would say, like Coach Kai said, reading their body language is a big thing. Like, I know I can only speak for me, but I know a lot of my friends who are women, you know, they say I'm fine all the time. Like their significant other will come to them and be like, you know, you've been kind of short with me today. What's going on? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. And yes, I agree that as women, we should just be confident and bold enough and say, no, when you did this, it made me mad. However, I also feel that that is a common thing that women do. So men at this point should know to just ask additional questions or say, well, you know, you've been kind of short since this conversation. Was it something that happened there? And really just reading off of those, you know, quick, like I said, the body language, nonverbal body language, or turn it over in the bed sometimes. Like really just the way we act. Women, we wear our emotions on our sleeve. So it's usually very visible, even if we don't think it is, of how we feel. If you're, you know, if you have a coworker who, you know, we may think you're too friendly with, every time that person come around, if we looking at them sideways or we like, you know, then you should ask more questions. But, you know, once again, I feel like women, we wear our emotions on our sleeve. It's very prevalent in our face, if anything, how we feel.
And you know, sometimes we have to work on that too, right?
Right.
So as I'm coaching people through their issues, you know, the one thing the guy will say is, all I hear is, and she doing this, you know? So we need to learn to control that, right? And it can be really hard. Like you said before, Destiny, it depends on, you know, how you grew up, you know, what you saw, you know, and a lot of our behaviors as adults really relate to what we saw as children. I had a significant other who would say, oh, well, you know, I never saw my parents argue. So the first time I had an argument with my wife, I thought, oh, well, this isn't comfortable. And I don't know what to do. He didn't know how to respond to, you know, what was happening there. So I think, you know, there is a significant place where each one of us as individuals need to step back and say, where can I do better? How can I listen better? Am I listening with active listening ears? Am I looking for the cues? And so, you know, all of that means something. And for those things that aren't said, you should be able to tell when your significant other is not saying anything. If she's just saying, okay, you know, don't worry about it. Oh, we'll need to talk about it. That's something we need to talk about.
Yeah, and we actually had a couple people that just tuned in. Make sure you guys go ahead and share this video now. Make sure you also post any questions or comments that you have. Coach Kai, how can you help women understand, and Destiny, how can you guys help them understand men aren't mind readers. You know, you have to talk. You have to tell them what's wrong.
Really?
Yeah, 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 man. They like, yeah.
I know for
Well,
me, when we got married, we went through marriage counseling. And that was actually very, very helpful. And I don't think enough people go through that, because during marriage counseling, we brought up our childhood. And while bringing up our childhood, we were able to kind of pinpoint, and to be honest, some of those things I forgot during marriage counseling, but as they arose, I was like, oh, this was something they told me to look out for. So for instance, for me, I was raised by a single mother for majority of my life. So I had a very independent, very, my way or the highway personality. And my husband is very direct as well. So we would bump heads a lot. And I had to realize that a couple of things. First is, I'm not dating him anymore. This is my husband, and I want this to work. So I had to be willing to humble myself, which meant, Destiny, you have to vocalize how you feel. Because the thing that I say to the people I coach, and even myself all the time, is if my marriage happened to not work, I want to be able to say I did everything that I possibly could do to make it work. Mm-hmm. And that means by being honest every time. And what we realize is that, yes, when we're honest with each other, it may hurt our feelings temporarily, but it allows us to actually know what to work on, instead of kind of going through this maze of, well, I think this is what's wrong with her, or I think this was what it was. Because even if we say 5 days later, right? Well, when you said this, it hurt my feelings. It takes away them being able to actually fix it, because we're not in that moment. So they're still kind of piecing together what it was about that conversation that made you, upset. But when you say it in the moment, listen, when you just said that kind of ticked me off. And we may go spat a little bit, but we'll get through that, versus 5 days, 2 months later, bringing it up. So I would say you have to look at yourself and say, am I in this for the long haul? Do I really want this to work? And I always say, you do have some say so in who you choose. Do you not assume that the person you chose has your best interest at heart? Because I feel like we're secretive, because we're like, well, are they going to use this against me one day? Like, then you need to reevaluate your choosing. If you didn't choose somebody that you could really be vulnerable with and really be honest with, and that they will be able to accept you for who you are. So that would be mine.
I'm so excited that you guys are. I'm sorry, but this is so good. This is so good, because I feel like this is something that really hinders relationships, and we don't put all this information that we learn. We don't put it into practice. They're like, oh, that was a good video. That's it. You
right.
know? So, but Coach Kai, what was you about to say?
So, the other important piece of it too, because what I heard Destiny say was how you're raised is significant, right? And so I'm sitting here thinking that sometimes, like for myself, I was born into a household where we had both parents. I was a single child. And so depending on where you are in that spectrum, whether or not you're a single child, whether or not you're the oldest, the middle child, the youngest, that too will determine how you interact in a relationship. People don't think about that. And so, for me, as a single child in a family, I get to it when I get to it. Mm-hmm. Right. And most only children are like that, right? There's no time frame for things. I've dated individuals who were the eldest. They had similar takes on life. Now I've dated people who were maybe the youngest, and they wanted immediate gratification. So you really have to know in the spectrum where you sit in that relationship. And the other side of it too is sometimes, depending on where you sit in that spectrum, you want to compete. That's mm-hmm. usually the middle child. Right. And so you got to know, there's a science to this, and people don't recognize it. My grandparents used to say that you look at a person's family and you determine who you're going to deal with. It is a true statement. Right. And so not only when you're stepping into, and I have to say this because, sometimes people get into relationships and they don't know how they got into the situation that they're in. Right. So here's some practice for some folks who are, thinking about entering into new relationships. Before you enter into a relationship, it is a great idea. This is not something that we're making up. This is a great idea to get to know the individual that you're thinking about dating.
Yeah.
It's a great idea to get to know the individual's families. I hear guys say, "Oh, I don't take females home to my mother unless I'm serious about them." You know what? Sometimes that's a big mistake, because there's something in that individual that someone else may be able to see, right? That may help you grow, right? And so it's very important that you get to know people and their families before you enter into a relationship. Now, once you enter into a marriage, you are not only married to the husband or wife, you are married to your in-laws, you are married to the siblings, you are married to the extended family. So you need to understand what you're going to be dealing with. Because a lot of times when people have problems in their relationships, there are others in their ears talking behind the scenes that may help your relationship or hurt your relationship.
That is so true. So I feel that sometimes people don't know that they have unhealthy communication amongst each other. What does unhealthy communication look like between a couple?
I
Just
think we've
from
been
what you
talking about
observe.
it. I think we've been talking about it. That kind of, oh, I'm gonna get silent. I'm not gonna say anything. You know, we're not gonna talk tonight. I'm just not gonna give him the time of day. That's a problem. That's problematic. That's a non-verbal communication piece. And then there's the individual that they can't talk, right? They've got to raise their voice. The volume has to go up to make themselves heard. You know, and so that's a problem, right? So we need to recognize that individually, right? Because it's all about, for me, living authentically, living you. So in that, you recognize where you fall short, and you recognize your strengths, and you need to play on your strengths. And when your weaknesses come into play, you need to be able to verbalize to your significant other that, you know, I have a problem in this area. And if you can forgive it, please forgive and love me now, right? So that, you know, when it gets to the really hard place and I'm doing those things that irritate the heck out of you, you're going to love me through it, and we're going to be able to work it out.
Yeah.
I would also say that if too much of your relationship is in the ears and hands of other people, then you guys aren't effectively communicating. Because if you feel like you have to go to an outside source to say, well, this is what's going on, and they have to give you advice of how to bring it back to your partner, now there's a middleman situation, and you just need to talk to your significant other.
In your ear.
Because honestly, that's where a lot of miscommunication comes in, because if we actually look at it, you're changing and altering yourself to satisfy the outside source, not your significant other, because you don't have their perspective. So anytime you're communicating with a third party on a regular basis about your relationship, then I would say you don't have good communication.
But what do you guys think about, like, you know how we maintain our cars, and like every 3,000 miles we go get an oil change, sometimes 5,000 miles, depending on the type of oil you have. What about having a relationship coach and using that individual?
And you don't have a relationship.
No. You in a relationship with somebody, but you keep that relationship coach, and maybe you say, okay, every 3 months, we're going to talk to our relationship coach, just to help the maintenance of your relationship continue to be strong. What do y'all feel about that?
I think that would be effective, as long as you both come to a common ground of who you choose. I think if one person chooses it, you're going to always feel like that person's taking their side. But I think that's actually very helpful. I think, you know, like you said, we have maintenance for our car. We have maintenance when we do sports. You know, we have to practice and, you know, keep the engine roaring. And I think it's something that is powerful in having a third party that is biased. It's nothing wrong with having a third party as long as they're a bias to both parties, and they can actually give you sound advice from being the outside looking in. I think that actually would be something that's good. It's just, will both parties actually be open to that?
Yeah. That's true.
For me, I think that if I, when I take a client, if someone calls me and they have that interest, right, I definitely out the door let them know that it has to be an agreed upon situation, and so my consult cannot happen without the two of them being present.
Okay.
Yeah, so that helps keep me honest. And I get to know them equally, right, from the very beginning. And also, just like they're choosing me, I get to select who I work with as well. So that's important for people to know that, choosing a relationship coach is almost like dating.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
true. I actually like to work with mine separately first, just because I feel like there's an honesty when the other party's not there that won't be there if they start together. From both parties, I just have found that even outside of a relationship, if you have a feud with somebody that's right in front of you, we choose our words carefully, I guess I should say, versus just really saying how you feel. Because sometimes you need that aggression to come out. You need those real feelings and emotions to come out so somebody can kind of talk you down and let you see what's really important. And I feel like that could get lost when you bring both of them right in the room. But I do feel like eventually bringing them both together, and then it kind of sets you up to give them the most strategic advice as well, because then you can deliver it in a way where the other party can understand, but it's giving the voice to the other party, if that makes any sense. So I like to do them separately, just to kind of allow them to feel like, okay, she heard my side of the story without her little piece, and can really see my perspective. And then we kind of talk through it, and they can see, like, well, I agree with you here, but I don't agree with you here, before the other party comes in. So then when I'm doing it in front of them, they don't feel like, oh, you're taking her side. No, I told you in our initial meeting, I did not agree with that. So I'd like that, because it just allows them, I feel, to start off at a very good foundation, if that makes sense.
And if you guys are really interested in having Destiny or Coach Kai as a relationship coach, make sure you visit their website, because it just lets you know a lot more about the services that they offer, and a little bit more about them as well. If you're just now tuning in, make sure that you go ahead and share this video now. So, ladies, I have a loaded question. So, if you can just listen to this question. So, if a person is known for being a liar in a relationship, but is trying to change this characteristic, how important is it that their actions reflect the things that they say?
Oh, so, um, you know, that behavior comes from something, right? And sometimes as coaches, we need that person to acknowledge where that is coming from, right? And so that just does not disappear, because you want that to disappear. You may want, but you may need to practice something, or you may need to acknowledge something, right? And so it's sort of like creating a vision board. A lot of people jump in and say, I'm going to create a vision board because this is what I want my tomorrows to be. But what they don't do is create a victory board, because there are some things you need to get victory from, right? And so, a part of that is, I need to be released from whatever is causing me to lie, whatever's causing me to hide behind the lie. You need to address that, right? And so until you can get victory, you can't go to your vision, right? And people need to understand that. Destiny, I know you probably could say more.
I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like it's going to be their actions that really speak to it. But we do have to have some communication to see what your train of thought was, because I have realized that men think completely different than women. What is disrespect to them may not be what's disrespectful to us. They'd be like, no, I really just was helping her with her car, or just stuff like they really are just sometimes naive. So I think communicating, where their train of thought was, what made them assume that was okay first, so we can kind of get to that part. And then after that is really me vocalizing what I'm looking for. And I think a lot of times it's just like, well, I don't want you to do that again. No, I want to be clear of what it is I'm expecting from you, so that once again, if something happens again, I can say, on January 21st, I told you these were the expectations for me to move forward, for me to fully trust you. And on number 3, you have voided this contract. So I think it goes back to communicating, just really being clear on these are the expectations. But it's really, I have found for women, allowing them to do that as well. Sometimes we want to relive the past so much, but no, you have to allow their actions to be their actions. And some people may not like that I say this, but that means still going through life the way you were previously. So not checking their phone now, not going through phone records. You have to allow them, and just know that we serve a mighty God who's going to let the stuff come to the front if it needs to anyways. But allow them the capacity to know that I'm trusting you. Whether I should or shouldn't, I'm trusting you, and I don't need to do any PI work or anything like that. But these are the expectations, and I'm going to let you move forward. And then you're allowing me to make a solid choice based on the decisions you make.
That's good. That's good.
And oftentimes people don't come to the table with you if they really earnestly don't want to see change. Right. And so that is something that I see in my female clients is, well, he's never going to change, but he came. Right. He's at the table. Right. And so there was some desire to make a change. And so, we have to be cognizant of that. When a person wants to be honorable and to make a change, they're going to come with you. And it was sort of like a post I saw the other day when the gentleman said, can a woman be very honest with a man? Right? Can a woman be very honest with a man? And I just see that, a lot of times that we don't give people enough space, like you said, Destiny, to show what their actions are actually going to be. And we might be surprised, right? And at the end of the day, you have to give someone the ability to use their presence of mind in a situation, right? Because people come from so many different places. And so how they deal with the situation is not exactly going to be what you thought was optimal. I think the old people used to say, who's to say what is good and what is bad? Right? So we have to be very cognizant of that action that he actually did, which was stopping on the side of the road to help the lady fix her tire, may have been an honorable thing for him. So.
And also, just piggybacking off what we talked about earlier, things you see in your household growing up. So it may take that actual thing that happens for them to know this is not okay. Just because that's what you saw your father do, or your mother for that matter, that doesn't make it okay. And this is my opportunity to tell you that's not okay. And let's see how we move forward. But if you don't allow them the opportunity to learn from that mistake, then it's kind of you putting this perfect expectation on them that you yourself can't live up to. It may be because that thing hurt you more. It doesn't change the fact that you're imperfect, and there's things that they can probably point out that you do that may hurt them just as much.
No, I forgot to say this. And don't forget, what you do in one relationship, don't take to the next relationship.
Right.
Good. That's true. That's very true, yet so hard. But I know we actually had someone post this question because they knew that you two were going to be on the show, and they asked, what communication signs indicate that you are in a toxic or abusive relationship?
Control. Control. Like there's one thing to allow the man to be the head and to lead, and there's a total different thing to allow them to control. And I guess to kind of give an example is allowing them to lead is saying, well, babe, when it comes to the bills this month, I want to kind of figure out how we're going to handle the bills. That's allowing them to lead. That's allowing them to kind of take on a role that they may not be comfortable with, but hey, you want to do it? Go ahead and do it. But control is, where were you 5 minutes ago? It should have been 12 miles and it took you 14 miles. I checked the odometer. Or, when you're out with your friends, I called you 3 times. Why didn't you answer? Your location wasn't on. That's when you're kind of crossing that line of, okay, okay,
This is
calm
not
down.
okay.
Yeah, this is not okay. So I think really understanding the difference, because I think a lot of times, and unfortunately it's most of the time with women, we get those two mixed up. Oh, well, he just wants to lead. It's okay to lead, but I'm a grown adult and I can make sound decisions of my safety and my whereabouts and let you know in a way that is safe for both of us, I guess.
Mhm.
So Desi, let me just throw this out too,
Mm-hmm.
that when women start making decisions like that, they come from a place of lack, right? And so they
Mm-hmm.
need to understand, okay, so I'm trying to keep this as Christian based as possible, right? You need to understand where your place of poverty is, right?
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of times when women allow situations, and men do the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
please not, let me make this clear. It happens on both sides of the house. When you start allowing this control factor to take over your entire relationship, there's some things going on. There's a poverty that's happening in your world.
So the individual that asked this question, it wasn't a physical abusive relationship that she was in, but she saw that um, through him, through his silence, it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like manipulative
Mm-hmm.
or like abusive,
Mm-hmm.
she felt, so sometimes people are in that manipulative state where they know what they're doing. They
Right.
know that silence makes you to internalize the entire situation and then begin to blame yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she really wanted me to ask that question, because and she was in this relationship, for a while. And so I think that hey, Coach Kai. So so I think that sometimes we're in these relationships, and I think that was a really good point that you made, Coach Kai, about bringing these individuals around your family members and friends, because that person that's abusive to you, mentally or physically, they do two things around your family members or friends. They either continue to act the way they act when y'all alone, or they fake that front and then they act like the sweetest person ever, but then when it's just y'all alone, the tables are turned, and their personality switches. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is so mindful as singles. We have to recognize those things. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder why he or she acts like this when we're in front of people and they don't treat me this way. So don't miss those red flags, that you get. But Coach Kai, finish what you were saying.
So, I think I was at the place where I was saying that poverty issue means that you have an issue with self-reliance, self-confidence, self-esteem. There isn't even a place where you even understand your self-awareness, right? And so when you start having those issues with those four selves, you should really step outside of the relationship. At that point, you need to end your relationship and you need to work on yourself. And so I've just stepped onto a topic that people don't like to talk about, is if you know that you can't give value to the relationship because you are having some more significant issues with self. You need to own up to the fact that maybe it's not the right time for you to be in a relationship. And sometimes, unfortunately, that happens when we're so deep into the relationship, where we've been married 5-6 years, and all of a sudden I realize this has been my issue all along. Or we're stepping into a very brand new relationship, and we're allowing this person to control every aspect of our lives, either because we feel needed. It's making us feel needed, making us feel wanted. And that's something that no coach can help you with. You then need to see a therapist. And so, I need for people to really recognize where they sit, because we do sit in a world where there are some deeper issues with folks. And that is the reason why they're having such huge confusion or dysfunction in their relationships. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm. So, if someone in their relationship knows that they struggle in the area of communicating, what are the benefits of asking God to help them in that area, you think?
Him revealing to you the root. Because at the end of the day, whether it's in communication, whether it's in your attitude, whatever it is, it comes from a root. And to kind of piggyback off what Coach Kyle was just saying, I think a lot of us don't take enough singleness time. We go from one relationship to the next just because we look at this time clock and things like that. So I think really allowing God to come in and reveal to you where that root is and dealing with that, allowing God to heal you from that. Even with getting in a controlling relationship, a lot of times it comes from, the lack of a father being in the household. And he has kind of played this role of a father in your life to where it kind of has led to this manipulation, and then you realize it's too bad. But if you would have just taken some time and really surrendered to God and allow God to heal that broken area inside of you, and I think a lot of times we pray for God to, uproot, remove, and dispose, but we forget to ask him to come back and heal. Because it's like a plant. If you pull up a plant, it's still a hole there. And what's going to happen is another void is going to come in. Something else is going to come to fill it. And you're going to be in the same place, if not worse. So really asking God to heal that area allows you to be healed going into the relationship in a good place, because we say it all the time, hurt people, broken people gravitate broken people. So if you're broken, you wonder why everybody you get in a relationship is dealing with abandonment just like you, or dealing with rejection, or dealing with, it may come out in different forms, but you're gravitating the people that have that same dysfunction or toxicity in you. So when you allow God to heal you, you gravitate to people who are healed, and then people see your value. So I would say it's very, very needed for you to really have that singleness time and just really surrender to God and allow him to reveal to you those areas that need to be dealt with, instead of kind of running from it or going from one relationship to the next.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm glad you said that, because people don't recognize that, there's nothing ugly about being single, right?
Right.
Singleness is a process. It's not who you are, right? It is a process. And actually it is ordained by God, right? There is a moment where it's just you and him, right? And so you need to understand that, right? That's very significant for anyone who exists in this world, right? And so, you need to understand that singleness process you need to go through. And that's another reason why I say sometimes people need to recognize when it's time to end a relationship. It may be time. It may be that small voice inside of you is saying, I need you and you need me, right? And so I think that's why often we see a lot of relationships that aren't working. And I know a lot of people are not going to like what I'm saying, but when you're in the world, when you're of the world, it makes things so difficult, right? Because you don't understand that one relationship with the Father, right? And so once you lose that power, because in that you get power, people don't understand that, right? That relationship gives you power. It gives you power to walk away from some things. It gives you power to stay in some things, right? And so, unless you take that time out to understand what that means for you, and for everybody, it's an individual walk. Nobody has the same singleness process walk. It's all different. Unless you understand what your walk is, you cannot be of value to anyone in any relationship.
Good. Right. That's good.
And I did on my podcast, I had a young lady come on, and we were actually talking about marriage and the importance of having God and prayer in your marriage. And she said it just is eye-opening how when we hit 30 or even 35, we're like, I need to be married, or even 25 at these ages now. We're like, I need to be married. But if you realize that even if you got married at 40, you still have 40, you're spending majority of your time with someone. Why not be okay with taking yourself out on a date? Why not be okay with just enjoying yourself? Because now you're about to get into this marriage with this person, and you're going to be with somebody for the rest of your life, for that matter. Like she said, it just blows my mind how we're so quick to want to be with someone that we don't want to just spend, because you don't leave your parents' house about 18 anyway. So it's only about 10, maybe 20 years that you're planning on spending with yourself before jumping into something that is going to be with someone forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I look at relationships or listen to how people communicate in their relationships. And I just wonder how both parties, like, why do they allow these things to happen? And I just think that sometimes people don't recognize who their creator is, and as well as with God, he created you in a way that you should not allow people to treat you in a certain way. And so I think that that's why I wanted you guys to point out what does an unhealthy relationship look like? Because if you've been in that state of mind where, oh, that's just her, you know, oh, that's just him doing such and such. No, you don't have to take this. This is not normal, and you deserve better. And I just think that when people recognize who God created them for a reason, you know, you just shouldn't let people just talk to you any type of way, walk all over you and things like that. I just, you don't have to take it, viewers. You don't have to take it. But I just thank you ladies for being on the show so much, just for sharing your knowledge. And I just really, guys, if you really resonated with the coaches, and you have seen in your relationship where, you know, you just want to take it to a new level, but there are just some areas in the relationship that you know that both of you guys need to work on. I just pray that you have that boldness to reach out to Coach Kai or Destiny. Like I said, all of their information is in the description box. Make sure you go ahead and share this video with other individuals that can truly be blessed with learning how to effectively and build stronger communication amongst their significant other. I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.